It all began on a rainy Thursday in the weather-worn coastal town of Elbridge, a place stitched together by secrets, whispers, and the fragile illusion of familiarity. To the outside world, Elbridge looked like any other sleepy New England town. Windswept porches groaning under the weight of sea salt and thyme, chipped white picket fences bordering lawns that struggled against coastal erosion, and neighbors who waved across driveways out of habit more than warmth. It had a timeless charm, like an oil painting left in an attic too long, where the cracks in the canvas told more truth than the brushstrokes ever could. But beneath its picturesque facade, beneath the clang of buoys in the harbor and the rustle of wind-whipped shutters, pulsed something darker. Everyone knew everyone, or at least they thought they did. In Elbridge, memory was malleable. People forgot things because it was easier that way. Easier not to look too closely. Easier to pretend the past was tidy and harmless, boxed up like childhood toys in an attic nobody visited anymore. Nora Halston, 35, had never left Elbridge, not once. She was the kind of person you might pass 100 times and never really notice. Quiet, observant, ordinary in a way that felt intentional. She taught English at the high school, led the poetry club after hours in room 214, and lived alone in a modest, sea-sprayed cottage perched high on the northern cliffs overlooking the endless gray churn of the Atlantic. To most, Nora was as much a fixture of Elbridge as the lighthouse that blinked lazily through the fog every evening, present, reliable, and utterly unremarkable. Her presence was gentle, like soft piano music in the background of a cafe, always there, but never the reason you entered. She wore muted colors, kept her hair in a bun secured by the same tortoiseshell clip since her college years, and had the kind of meticulous handwriting that looked like it belonged in a 1940s love letter. People liked her, or at least they didn't dislike her, but they didn't know her. Not really. They didn't know what she carried, or what she had chosen to forget, until the day her sister returned. Claire Halston arrived like a ghost summoned by the storm. No warning, no phone call, no explanation. Just the sudden growl of a yellow taxi engine outside Nora's cottage, and the metallic slam of a trunk being shut against the wind. Nora opened the door and found her standing there, Claire, her long estranged sister, 15 years vanished without a word, now standing in the rain with a soaked wool coat clinging to her frame, a tattered leather suitcase at her feet, and eyes that burned with secrets and scars. Claire was different now, older, leaner, sharper around the edges. Her silence didn't just speak volumes, it screamed. She didn't ask to come in. She simply stepped forward, dripping water onto the hardwood. And Nora moved aside because it was the only thing she could do. The storm wasn't outside anymore. It had come into her home, and with it came the past, uninvited and unforgiving. Claire moved into Nora's cottage like a storm cloud settling over the cliffs. Her presence changed the air, made it heavier. Nora tried to pretend it was fine, that the sudden reappearance of her sister after a decade and a half could be absorbed like a gust of sea breeze. But the town noticed. Elbridge always noticed. Whispers sprouted like weeds at the diner, behind the shelves at the library, at the back pews during Sunday service. What brought Claire Halston back after all this time? And why now? What had changed? Nobody dared ask aloud, but speculation filled the space where answers never came. Because in Elbridge, silence was currency, and Claire was now bankrupt. Nora hadn't spoken of the past in years. She buried it, the way Elbridge taught everyone to bury things, with polite smiles, incomplete police reports, and a resolute refusal to look under the floorboards. She especially didn't speak of the night their father disappeared, a disappearance that had haunted their adolescence like a phantom limb. It was never truly investigated, never publicly questioned. Their father, Arthur Halston, a beloved teacher at the very high school where Nora now worked, had walked out one evening in 2007 and never returned. No note, no body, no answers. Their mother, consumed by grief and already brittle from a lifetime of secrets, overdosed the following year. It was ruled accidental. Nora didn't believe that. But believing something didn't make it true, not in Elbridge. Claire, however, was not content with forgetting. She hadn't come back for forgiveness or family. She had come back for truth. And the first place she searched was the attic of Nora's cottage. where their mother's belongings had sat untouched for over a decade. Claire found them. Boxes of old letters, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a stack of leather-bound journals wrapped in twine. Nora had never dared open them. Claire read every page, and whatever she found inside, it changed her. She became obsessed, poring over names, cross-referencing dates, mapping connections that seemed insane at first. But the more she uncovered, the more it all started to make terrible sense. The picture they began to unearth was not just ugly, it was monstrous. Their father, the respected educator, had been under quiet internal investigation before he vanished, accused of misconduct, of abuse. Students' names had been mentioned, only to be later retracted, dismissed, and sealed. The people who had covered it up? Familiar faces. Nora's former principal, the local sheriff, even the pastor who had christened them as children. Elbridge hadn't just forgotten, it had conspired. When the first letter arrived, no envelope, just a folded page with red ink that read, "You dig too deep, you'll end up in the dirt." Nora panicked. She begged Claire to stop, to let it go, to leave Elbridge once and for all. But Claire was already in too deep. She was digging up a grave that didn't want to be disturbed. And then, just like before, she vanished. This time, there were clues. Her car was found abandoned near the riverbank, driver's door ajar. Her phone, screen shattered, lay on the rocks nearby. No signs of a struggle, no sign of Claire. The sheriffs blamed stress, trauma, perhaps even suicide. The town nodded along, but Nora knew better. She remembered the look in Claire's eyes the night before, the flicker of terror beneath her resolve. Claire hadn't run, she had been silenced. And then came the dreams. Or maybe they were memories. Nora couldn't tell anymore. The past was no longer linear. It bled through the cracks in her mind like seawater through old wood. She remembered that stormy night in 2007. The shouting, the red light flickering in the woods. A scream, blood on someone's hands. Whose hands? She didn't know. Or maybe she did, and just couldn't face it. Weeks later, in a haze of grief and rage, Nora opened a hollowed-out copy of Wuthering Heights from her mother's bookshelf. Inside was a key. No note, but she knew immediately where it belonged. The rusted basement door of their childhood home, boarded up since their mother's death. She went alone. The house was a tomb, mold on the walls, the stink of rot. But beneath the stairs, behind an old wardrobe, she found it. A hidden room, just as Claire's notes had described. Dozens of VHS tapes, organized in crates, labeled by year and by name. She pressed play. What she saw drained the warmth from her body. Her father's voice filled the room, distorted but unmistakable. Then, faces of children, frightened, frozen, far too young. Nora didn't want to see, but she forced herself. It was real. It was all real. Claire had been right, and the final tape shattered what little sanity she had left. It showed Claire, in that same basement, confronting Arthur, her voice cracked with rage. A gun trembled in her hand. She was crying. She was screaming. The camera fell, then silence. No gunshot, just darkness. Nora sat there for hours, broken. Claire hadn't come to expose the truth. She had come to end it, to erase it, or to confess. Maybe all three. Nora didn't know what to do, but she knew one thing. She couldn't stay silent. That night, her cottage burned to the ground. The fire department called it electrical. The sheriff confirmed it, but Nora saw the accelerant stains. She barely escaped with her life. The tapes were gone, the journals, ashes, but she had copied the names, every single one, into a small leather notebook. Her insurance, or her revenge. She disappeared that night. No goodbyes, no trace. Just like Claire. A year later, the reckoning began. Anonymous blogs surfaced. True crime podcasts caught wind of the story. Investigative journalists descended on Elbridge like buzzards. Lawsuits followed. Files were unsealed. Those who once held power were now drowning in scandal. The town turned on itself. But Nora was never seen again. Nor was Claire. Only the cliffs remember now. The rain still falls, soft and ceaseless. And the wind? It still whispers their names.